All right, let's finish up this lecture over parenting and development. The last thing we were talking about was unconditional positive regard, which means that the child receives good positive input from the parents no matter how they behave. They could screw up big, they could go to jail, they could do anything, and the parents still love them unconditionally. They are absolutely all about that. Now, occasionally you'll see something on the news on ESPN or something like that where the parents behave ridiculous after the child loses. Maybe they lose the baseball game and the parent won't speak to them for a week because they lost. But unconditional positive regard means that no matter how the child behaves, whatever they do right or wrong, the parent's still there to support them and be right behind them the whole time. These kids develop high self-esteem. They're much more adjusted in the world. If they don't give them that, they usually give them conditional positive regard, which means they only show love and affection when the child behaves in acceptable ways. They put certain limits on how often they're going to and reinforce their love for their kid. So you want to give your child unconditional, not conditional. All right, so how does our cognitive development work? It's our thought processes. Now, you think different than a child does. You think a lot different than a child does. The biggest researcher here was a guy named Jean Piaget, a Frenchman, you can tell by his hat, studied children's thought processes, and he thought that you can determine where the child is at mentally by putting them into one of two different ways. One of these things is called simulation, when new information is placed in a category that already exists. Okay, imagine this: a little kid has never has a dog, and he's not been exposed to dogs or cats, and he goes for a walk with mom, whether he's in a stroller or whatever, but he's starting to speak, and so they're walking along, and he points out there he's seen pictures of dogs, and so he points out there, and mama goes doggy, and the kid goes doggy or dog or something like that. They go a little further, they see a totally different kind of dog. Maybe this one's a German Shepherd or something like that. He points out there and goes dog, and then he goes a little further, he sees maybe a little poodle or something like that, and he points over there and he goes dog, and mama's going, yes, that's right, that's right, that's right. He's putting all of those little pictures of a dog into his file folder for dogs. All those things are dogs. So he goes a little further, and he sees a cat, and he points out there, and he goes dog, and mom goes, nope, nope, that's not a dog, that's a cat. And so now he's got to try to figure out the difference between dogs and cats. How do you explain that to a little kid? I mean, they both have four legs, they're both furry. Yeah, they make different noise, but they might not be making noise at the time, so it's a difficult thing to explain to a child, but that's called assimilation. He's got the category, he's putting new pictures of dogs into that. Now, when all of a sudden he has to come up with that cat category, that's accommodation. There's new information. They're like, ooh, there's ones that are quiet, I guess. There's ones that are sneaky. That's accommodation. So assimilation and accommodation. Accommodation is when you come up with new folders. And Piaget is the one who identified these two different ways to process information. He also identified 4 stages that every child goes through developmentally. The first one is your sensory motor stage. The infant realizes the relationship between their movements and their results. They realize that if they swing their arms, they hit that mobile that's hanging over their crib, that they actually cause that to happen, so they will do it again. Or there's little things that go over the end of the crib that they'll kick and they'll make noises with. These things are, the child will hit that and their feet will just go all over the place trying to make more noise. That's at the sensory motor stage. Before 6 months, they are truly out of sight, out of mind. And if they see something, if you hide it from them, they cease to exist. That's called object permanence. They understand that the object exists even when they can't see it. You play peekaboo with the little baby, they'll put their hands over their eyes, and you truly are gone. And when they open their eyes, you're there in front of them. It's like a brand new day. They're like, oh my gosh, what's this person doing here? They have no concept that you're still there even though they can't see you. That's object permanence. You could test it like this. You see that little boy, well, it's pretty much the same picture on the left there. He does not have any object permanence. He sees that thing. He sees a little toy. Put the big piece of cardboard in front there, and the thing ceases to exist. Now, if he has object permanence, he's after 6 months, he will try to push that thing out of the way to get to the toy. That's how they test for that. It lasts until about 2 years of age, the sensory motor stage does. Then comes your pre-operational stage. You start to use language. You start to realize that when you ask for something and you say something over and over again, it appears. Somebody brings it to you. They only see one aspect of a situation at a time. You can't reason with a child in the pre-operational stage. They only see their view. They do not understand the law of conservation, which means that properties of substances, weight, volume, number, will stay the same even when the shape or arrangement is changed. If you have a handful of marbles and you say, would you like these marbles or would you like these, and you lay them on the ground where they spread out, they will pick the ones on the ground every time. Or you could have maybe 2 beakers of water, a short fat one and a tall skinny one. You put the same amount of water in both and say which one has more in it. They will pick the tall one every time, because to them tall means more. They don't understand it. It's the same amount of water. That concept is beyond them. That's the law of conservation. And they also develop egocentrism, inability to see another person's point of view. Like I said, that you cannot reason with them. They're only their point of view. You can't say, well, I'm going to use the toy now and you use it later. Nope, that won't work. They are artificialistic, which means that they think that things that happen are all under someone's control. You know, make it rain or make the sun come out. Those things are artificialistic, and they are also animistic, which means the objects are alive. Like that tree scratched me, or that door gave me a splinter or smashed my finger. I guess this would be personification if you're talking about literature. So artificialistic means that everything's made by man, and animistic means that all objects are alive. Third stage, your concrete operational stage. It occurs around 7. This is about the time you start to go to school. They are logical only when they think about specific objects and not abstract ideas. They learn by hands-on experiences. If you go into an elementary classroom, it is full of different things that they can use to learn to teach with. You can't just teach kids numbers. Occasionally in kindergarten, you'll see a little kid that knows his multiplication tables. You know, everybody's just freaking out. But all they've done is memorize. 8 times 7 equals 56. That's all they know. They've just memorized that the next word out of their mouth after 8 and 7 has to be 56. They don't really understand the concept of 8 groups of 7 is actual 56 things. They need to have something to teach them to add, like you would have like 1 apple, and you give them 2 apples and say, how many apples do you have? And then they can sit there and count and go, oh, I have 3 apples. So it has to be hands-on experiences. That's Piaget's big thing. The fourth one is your formal operational stage. It occurs around puberty. This is the stage that we're all in right now. They're capable of abstract thought. You can't teach little kids algebra. They just don't understand the concept of x or squares. That just is far beyond them. They utilize problem-solving skills. You know, if something doesn't work right, you try something else. You don't keep trying the same thing over and over and over again like a little child would. The last part of this is Kohlberg's theory of moral development. Now, moral development means how we develop our morals, our sense of right and wrong. This is Kohlberg here. He thinks that there are 3 different levels of moral development. The way he does this is he tells them a story of Hans. Kohlberg's a German man, and so obviously the guy's name is Hans. So he lives in a little village, and his wife is desperately ill. Um, Now, there's a pharmacist in town who has developed a drug that will cure his wife. So Hans tries to find out more about this drug. He finds out the drug costs like $2,000 for a dose of this, which will save his wife. So he sells everything he can, but he only can come up with about $1,000. So he goes in and he's talking to the pharmacist, excuse me, and he says, "Look, I have to have this. I desperately need it. My wife is really sick. I have $1,000. It's everything I have. Please, I know it doesn't cost you this much to make the drug. You know, you'll still make a profit, but please um, sell me the drug for $1,000 instead of $2,000." And the pharmacist is like, "Nope, not going to do it. I made it to make money. I'm sorry. Too bad. So sad." So that night, Hans goes back and he breaks into the pharmacy and he steals the drug. He puts the money he has raised, $1,000, on the counter. He goes home, saves his wife. Now the next day, the police come, they arrest him, and they put him in jail. Now he asks the child, was Hans wrong? Now if they're in the pre-conventional stage, they said, well, he got arrested and goes to jail. So that's all they know is punishment. So he says, yep, they're wrong because he went to jail. So that's all the little child will know. Now when you get to the next level, they base their judgment in terms of whether the act conforms to the standards of right and wrong. So he stole. Stealing is wrong. So therefore he was wrong. That's the conventional stage. And then you have the post-conventional stage, which is where we're at now. We say, well, he was trying to save a life. The guy still made money, just didn't make as much. Was it wrong? Yeah, it was wrong, but he was saving a life, which is more important than making money. So he's in the post-conventional stage. So pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. Pre-conventional is wrong based on whether you get in trouble. Conventional is wrong whether the act you did is right or wrong. And post-conventional is based on your own moral judgments. So the kids develop through this, and we all get into the post-conventional stage where we're at now. And that is our lecture for this chapter. We've only got one more to go, so good luck with the review and the test.